Today, we are digging into the incredible 10-year saga of a mining company's quest to turn a promise on paper into actual, real gold. It's a heck of a story about patience, pressure, and one massive, game-changing strategic pivot.
Okay, so let's get right to it. Here's the big puzzle we're tackling. Imagine you own a treasure map that leads to mountains of gold, but for 10 solid years, you can't get your hands on a single coin. That was the reality for PT Boomi Resources Minerals, or BRMS. So how in the world does that even happen?
To figure this out, we didn't just guess. We went straight to the source, a full decade of the company's own annual reports. So we're going to walk you through their story, step by step, to see exactly how they navigated this unbelievably long and difficult road. All right, let's jump in. First up, we're heading back to 2011. Picture this. BRMS was a company that was, well, rich, but only on paper. It was all potential, all theory, with nothing concrete to show for it just yet. I mean, if you just looked at their paperwork, things looked fantastic. They had huge ownership stakes in some really promising mineral sites. Their big prize, their crown jewel, was this thing called the Palu Gold Project, where they owned almost 97% of the local company. This was their future. But here's the catch. It wasn't actually producing a single ounce of anything.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because it shows this huge paradox at the heart of the company. See, they did have a piece of a massive producing gold mine that cranked out over 300,000 ounces in just 1 year. But, and this is a big but, they only owned an 18% stake. So yeah, some money was coming in, but it wasn't their operation. They weren't calling the shots, and it wasn't the revenue they were banking their future on. So why the huge delay? Why couldn't they just start digging for their own gold? Well, it all comes down to this one thing, the contract of work. And trust me, this is not just some simple permit you pick up at City Hall. Nope. It's this massive multi-step legal beast of an agreement with the government that lays out every single thing you have to do before you can even think about mining.
And yeah, take a look at this. This timeline really shows you just how long we're talking. We're not talking weeks or months. First, a survey. That can take up to 2 years. Then exploration. That's another 3 to 5 years. And only then can you maybe start building. It's not a sprint. It's an absolute ultramarathon. So let's fast forward a bit. We're in the middle of the decade now, and BRMS is deep in the trenches of this development marathon. But, running a marathon is exhausting. It burns through cash like you wouldn't believe, especially when the whole world economy starts working against you. And right when they needed money the most, the global market for some of their other key assets, like copper, just fell off a cliff. Between 2013 and 2016, prices were tanking, putting an even tighter squeeze on their finances. And wow, this number right here, it says everything you need to know. By 2018, the financial pain was intense, a net loss of over $103 million in one single year. All this money was going out the door, with not a single dollar coming in from their own mines to balance it. So you get the picture, right? It was basically the perfect storm. They weren't just juggling one big, expensive project, they were trying to handle 3 at the same time. All of this while the market's crashing, they've got massive debts, and they're tangled up in all this complex environmental red tape. It was a mess. Okay, so clearly something had to give. They just couldn't keep going like this. So around 2018, facing all this incredible pressure, they did something drastic. They completely tore up the old playbook and came up with a new one. And you can literally see this shift in thinking right on the cover of their own annual report from that year. The theme was Strategic Alliance to Accelerate Production. It's basically them shouting from the rooftops, okay, Plan B, we need help, and we need to speed this up now. So, what did this new strategy actually look like? Well, first, they brought in a partner for one of their other big projects, which freed up a bunch of much-needed cash. And then they took all that money and all their focus and aimed it like a laser at one single goal: get that Palu gold mine up and running. They decided that was their best shot, their fastest way to actually make some money, and they went all in. And you know what? That big bet? It worked. It paid off big time. This was the moment they'd been grinding for 10 long, hard years. I mean, you can just feel the relief pouring out of this quote from their 2019 report. They called it the fruit of long and tireless hard work. They'd finally done it. After all those years of bleeding money and hitting roadblocks, they had actually built their own mine. And just look at these numbers. It is absolutely wild. To go from losing over $103 million one year to actually making a profit the next, that is an insane turnaround of over $104 million bucks. And it was all because of that one big strategic change. And there you have it, early 2020, the moment of truth. For the very first time in its history, BRMS was making money from a mine they actually built and operated. That on-paper promise, it was finally real, solid gold. But hold on a second. How do you even survive a decade of losses like that? It's not just about a clever strategy at the very end. There had to be something deeper, a strong foundation that held the whole thing together, right? Well, the answer is this thing called good corporate governance, GCG for short. Think of it like the company's internal rulebook. It's all about how they run things and who's accountable for what. And for a risky long-shot project like this, having that solid rulebook is everything. It's what keeps your investors from panicking and running for the hills. And you can see in their reports they had a really clear system. You've got the day-to-day managers, the directors, but then you have this board of commissioners watching over them, kind of like watchdogs for the real owners, the shareholders. It's all about checks and balances, making sure everyone is doing their job. And all of this was built on a solid code of ethics. I mean, stuff like value human life above all else and never put profits before safety. Those aren't just nice words. They send a powerful message, especially when you're losing money, that you're still a responsible company that can be trusted. So in the end, BRMS made it. They crossed that desert, they took one of their big projects and finally made it a success. But it leaves you with a huge question, doesn't it? What's next? Can they do it again with their other massive projects? Can they really build something that lasts in the crazy up and down world of mining? That right there is the billion-dollar question.